Hello everyone. In today's video, get ready for a captivating story that will stir your emotions. Let's learn about the incredible journey of Rowena Carlisle, a determined woman who, after living a life dedicated to the pursuit of achievement and recognition, found herself facing death in an experience that took her to the threshold. There, the trapped souls revealed a shocking secret that changed everything she knew about life and what really matters. What she saw on the other side will leave you speechless. Before we start, leave your like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, and activate the bell to receive all notifications. Now, get ready to dive into this intense and transformative journey that will make you rethink your own existence. My name is Rowena Carlisle, and until recently, I lived a life that many would consider successful. I grew up in a middle-class family in Colorado Springs, always driven by the need to prove myself. From an early age, I learned that success was measured by achievements and recognition. This mentality led me to become an elite athlete, always seeking to overcome my own limits. I was known for my relentless determination. I woke up before sunrise to train, spent hours perfecting my skills, and never, ever took no for an answer. My life was a constant race, not just on the track, but in every aspect. I competed with myself, with my colleagues, with the world. Every day was a new opportunity to prove that I could be better, faster, stronger. This obsession with excellence took its toll. Relationships, they were secondary. Family, important, but not as important as my career. Friendships, kept at a distance, as I couldn't afford distractions. I was a finely tuned machine, focused solely on achieving the next goal, breaking the next record. What I didn't realize was that, in my never-ending quest for perfection, I was losing sight of what really mattered. Human connections, the warmth of a sincere hug, the joy of an unpretentious conversation, all of this took a back seat. I was so busy running that I forgot to live. Little did I know that the universe was about to teach me a lesson that no amount of training could have prepared me for. An experience that would not only change my perspective, but shake the very foundations of my existence. It was necessary to reach death's door for me to finally learn to live. It was a particularly hot afternoon in Colorado Springs. The sun seemed more relentless than ever, punishing the arid mountain soil. I was in the middle of intensive training, preparing for a competition that, in my mind, would be the defining milestone of my career. Sweat ran down my face, mixing with the dust that the wind occasionally kicked up. My muscles screamed in protest, but I ignored them, as I always did. I remember feeling a strange sensation running through my body. At first, it was just a slight tingling in the limbs, something that could easily be attributed to physical exertion. But as the minutes passed, this feeling intensified. My vision began to blur, the colors of my surroundings blending into an indistinct blur. Still, I forced myself to continue. That's when I felt my heart race in a way I'd never experienced before. It wasn't the normal exercise acceleration. It was something different, scary. My chest tightened, as if an invisible hand was squeezing it. The air, which had previously moved in and out of my lungs with the precision of a well-calibrated machine, now felt scarce. I tried to call for help, but my voice gave out. The words caught in my throat, turning into a muffled moan. My legs, which for so many years had carried me through countless races and competitions, now gave way under my weight. I felt my body collapse to the ground, dust rising around me like an opaque cloud. The world around me began to disappear. The sounds became distant, as if they were coming from far away. The blue sky above me seemed to be closing in, the edges of my field of vision rapidly darkening. My last conscious thought was a mix of fear and frustration. Fear of the approaching unknown and frustration at failing just when I was so close to achieving my goal. And then, everything went dark. What happened next is something that, even now, I have difficulty putting into words. It was as if I was suddenly watching a scene from a movie, but the movie was about myself. I saw my body lying motionless on the ground, while I hovered above it. The feeling was surreal. There was no weight. There was no pain. There were no physical limitations. It was as if I were made of air, or perhaps of pure thought. I looked at my hands, or at least where my hands were supposed to be, and saw only an ethereal, almost transparent shape. The world around me felt different. The colors were more vibrant, more vivid than I had ever seen. I could perceive every detail with stunning clarity, from the small stones on the ground to the leaves on the distant trees. It was as if my senses had been magnified exponentially. I tried to call for help, to shout to someone passing by, but my voice made no sound. It was then that I realized I was no longer connected to my physical body. The realization hit me like a bolt of lightning. Was I dead? The initial panic soon gave way to intense curiosity. I floated effortlessly, moving with just the power of thought. I looked down at my body on the floor again and felt a strange disconnect. That physical form, which I had spent so many years training and perfecting, now seemed so insignificant. I tried to touch my body, but my ethereal hands just passed through. It was at that moment that I felt a kind of pull. It was as if something or someone was calling me to another place. It was not a physical force, but an irresistible attraction. I looked one last time at the scene below me, my limp body, the familiar surroundings of the Colorado Springs Mountains, and then I surrendered to that mysterious force. In the blink of an eye, the world I knew disappeared. The transition was abrupt and disorienting. One moment I was floating above my body in Colorado Springs. The next I was plunged into darkness so thick it seemed to have a substance of its own. This was not a physical place as I knew it. It was a realm of intense sensations and emotions. The threshold, as I later came to understand, was a direct reflection of my inner state. The darkness around me was not just the absence of light, but a tangible manifestation of all the dark thoughts, hurts, and resentments I had accumulated throughout my life. Every particle of this environment seemed permeated with pain and suffering. Little by little, I began to make out shapes in the dim light. They were other souls, or at least that's what they seemed to be. Some wandered aimlessly, lost in their own torments. Others writhed in silent agony, as if they were reliving their worst memories on an endless loop. The horror I felt watching them was overwhelming. I tried to communicate, to call for help, but my voice seemed to be swallowed by the darkness. It was then that I realized I wasn't just observing that place, I was part of it. Every negative emotion I felt in life, the anger at not achieving a goal, the resentment over missed opportunities, the envy of other people's success, it was all there, amplified and reflected in the environment around me. The feeling of isolation was overwhelming. There was no direction, there was no time, there was no hope. Every moment seemed to stretch into an eternity. I tried to remember happy moments, people I loved, but those memories seemed distant and inaccessible. It was in this moment of absolute despair that I heard the voice. It wasn't a sound in the conventional sense, but more like a thought forming directly in my consciousness. The voice was deep, imposing, but not threatening. "This is a reflection of what you still carry in your heart, Rowena." These words hit me with the force of a revelation. The threshold was not an external punishment, but a manifestation of my own choices and thoughts. It was a mirror of my soul, showing me everything I had refused to see in life. Just when I thought I couldn't stand another second in that oppressive place, something changed. It was as if an invisible curtain had been opened, allowing a beam of light to penetrate the darkness of the threshold. At first, it was just a tiny, barely noticeable dot, but as I focused my attention on him, the light began to grow. The transformation was gradual but constant. The darkness around me began to dissipate, like fog in the morning sun. The shadows that previously seemed to have a life of their own now receded, giving way to an increasingly intense glow. It was as if I was being pulled out of a deep well, towards the surface. As I got closer to the source of the light, I began to feel something I hadn't experienced since leaving my body. Heat. It wasn't a physical warmth, but a feeling of welcome, of belonging. It was as if every particle of my being was being enveloped in a warm, comforting hug. The light wasn't as blinding as I expected. On the contrary, it was soft and inviting. Colors I had never seen before danced in its periphery, creating patterns of indescribable beauty. I felt a deep peace envelop me, dispelling all the fear and anxiety I had experienced on the umbral. As I approached, I realized that the light was not just a visual phenomenon. She emanated pure, unconditional love. It was as if all the love that ever was, is, and will be was concentrated in that one spot, radiating in all directions. For the first time since I started this journey, I felt like I was going home. The voice I heard on the umbral returned, now softer and more welcoming. "Welcome, Rowena. Are you ready for the next stage of your journey?" I didn't need to respond with words. My entire being yearned for that light, for that love. Without hesitation, I gave in completely, allowing the light to envelop me completely. In an instant, I was transported to a new realm of existence. The contrast with umbral could not be more stark. Where there was once darkness and despair, there was now infinite light and love. I was about to embark on the deepest and most revealing part of my near-death experience. Upon entering this new realm, I was immediately enveloped by a sense of peace and harmony that I had never experienced before. It was as if every atom of my being vibrated in perfect tune with the universe. The light that surrounded me was not just visual, it seemed to penetrate every aspect of my existence, filling me with an understanding and clarity that went beyond words. In this place, time and space seemed like fluid concepts. I could perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously, as if I were seeing through multiple layers of reality. Colors that don't exist in the Earth's spectrum danced around me, creating patterns of indescribable beauty. Melodious sounds, which seemed more like emotions translated into music, echoed softly. As I adapted to this new environment, I began to notice presences around me. They were not physical forms as we know them, but entities of pure light and energy. Each of them radiated love and wisdom in a way that made me feel completely accepted and understood. One of these presences approached me. Although it didn't have a defined shape, I recognized it instantly. It was my grandmother, who had passed away years ago. But it wasn't the image of the old lady that I remembered. It was her pure essence, radiant and full of life. Without words, she transmitted to me a feeling of love so deep that I felt overwhelmed with emotion. Other familiar presences joined her, friends I had lost, mentors I admired, and even my old dog, Buddy. Each of them greeted me not with words, but with waves of unconditional love and acceptance. For the first time, I understood the true meaning of home. The voice that had guided me from the beginning spoke again, now seeming to come from all directions at once. "Here, Rowena, you are experiencing the true nature of the universe. This is a place of healing, learning, and growth. But remember, your journey is not over yet. I wanted to stay there forever, bathed in that infinite light and love. But something inside me knew the voice was right. There was more to see, more to learn. With a mix of gratitude and anticipation, I prepared myself for the next step of my journey beyond life. In the realm of light, time seemed to not exist as we know it. In an instant that could have been either a second or an eternity, I was guided into what I can only describe as a cosmic theater. Before me, scenes from my life began to unfold. It wasn't like watching a movie. It was like reliving every moment, with a clarity and depth of perception I had never experienced before. Each scene was accompanied not only by images and sounds, but also by emotions and sensations, both mine and those of the people around me. The most surprising thing was that the moments that stood out weren't necessarily the ones I considered important in life. It wasn't the victories in competitions, the medals won, or the records broken. It was the small moments, the seemingly insignificant interactions that gained prominence in this cosmic review. I saw myself as a child, comforting a classmate who had fallen on the playground. I felt his gratitude, the warmth of his embrace, the purity of that gesture of kindness. Then the scene changed to a moment when, as an adult and focused on my career, I ignored a cry for help from an elderly neighbor. I felt his disappointment, his loneliness, and it went through me like a blade. The ever-present guiding voice gently asked after each scene, "What did you learn here, Rowena? What could you have done differently?" Moments with my family gained new meaning. I saw the times when I chose training instead of attending family gatherings, now feeling the disappointment of my parents and siblings. But I also saw the moments of shared joy, the laughter, the hugs, and I understood the priceless value of these connections. One scene in particular stuck with me deeply. The day my childhood best friend Amber Sinclair tried to reach me to share some important news. I was so engrossed in my training routine that I quickly sent her packing, promising to call back later, something I never did. Now, reliving that moment, I felt Amber's hurt, her disappointment, and the slow distancing that followed in our friendship. The review was not an experience of judgment, but of deep understanding. Every action, every choice, was viewed through a lens of compassion, both for myself and for others involved. I understood that each interaction, no matter how small, had the power to create ripples of impact in people's lives. At the end of this review, I felt transformed. The perspective I had on success, fulfillment, and life purpose had been completely reconfigured. I realized that the true measure of a life well lived was not in personal achievements, but in the depth and authenticity of the connections we formed with others. The guiding voice spoke again, this time with a question that echoed throughout my being. "Now that you have seen your life through these eyes, Rowena, what would you do differently if you had another chance?" This question hung in the air, loaded with possibilities. I knew my answer would define the next step in my journey. Faced with that monumental question, I felt the weight of all the revelations I had experienced. My life review had clearly exposed the areas where I had failed to recognize what really mattered. Now, faced with the possibility of a second chance, I knew my response would be crucial. For a moment, I was tempted by the unconditional peace and love that surrounded me in this realm of light. The idea of remaining there, free from the complications and challenges of earthly life, was incredibly attractive. But then, I remembered all the missed moments, the connections I overlooked, the opportunities to make a difference I passed up. If I had another chance, I finally responded, I would live with an open heart. I would prioritize relationships, not achievements. I would strive to see the value in each person who crossed my path, to be truly present in each moment. As soon as I spoke those words, I felt a change in the environment around me. The light seemed to pulse with a new intensity, as if responding to my decision. The guiding voice spoke again, this time with a tone that seemed to mix approval and challenge. "Rowena, are you ready to return and live according to this new understanding? Remember, the path will not be easy. Old habits and patterns of thoughts don't disappear overnight." I hesitated for a moment, pondering the difficulties I would face. Returning would mean leaving this absolute peace and clarity behind. It would mean facing the consequences of my past actions and actively working to change. But it would also mean a chance to repair relationships, to create new meaningful connections, to live a life aligned with the values that I now understood were truly important. "Yes," I replied, with a conviction that came from the depths of my being. "I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to live in a different way." The moment I made that choice, I felt a wave of energy wash over me. It was as if all the love and wisdom I had experienced in this realm were condensing, preparing me for return. The guiding voice spoke one last time. "Remember, Rowena, that you will always carry a little of this place within you. In moments of doubt or difficulty, seek this inner light. It will be your guide and your strength." With those words, I felt myself being gently pulled back. The realm of light began to dissipate around me, but instead of fear, I felt deep gratitude and determination. I was returning with renewed purpose, with a deeper understanding of what it means to truly live. The transition back into the physical world was as abrupt as my initial departure. In an instant, I was enveloped in unconditional light and love. The next, I was violently pulled back into my body. The first sensation was pain, intense, sharp, crushing. Every nerve in my body felt like it was screaming, as if protesting the sudden return to physical existence. My lungs burned as I struggled to breathe, each inhale a battle against the tightness that had settled in my chest. Slowly, I began to hear voices around me, urgent, concerned, professional. I was able to make out fragments of sentences. She's coming back. Maintain compression. Prepare the defibrillator. I realized I was being resuscitated by an emergency medical team. I opened my eyes with difficulty, the daylight seeming blinding and harsh after the time spent in the ethereal realm. The shapes around me were initially blurry, but gradually became clearer. I saw worried faces watching me, expressions of relief spreading as I showed signs of awareness. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and sore. A paramedic leaned over me, her voice gentle but firm. "Don't try to talk now, Rowena. You've gone into cardiac arrest. We're taking you to the hospital." As I was prepared for transport, a wave of emotions washed over me. Relief to be alive, gratitude for the team that saved me, and a deep, almost overwhelming sense of purpose. The memories of my experience beyond life were vivid in my mind, and I knew that my life would never be the same. On the drive to the hospital, as the paramedics monitored my vital signs and administered necessary care, I held tightly to the lessons I had learned. Every beat of my newly revived heart seemed to echo a promise: to live differently, to love more deeply, to cherish every moment and every connection. Arriving at the hospital, I was quickly taken for further tests and assessments. Doctors and nurses moved around me efficiently, running tests and checking my condition. In the midst of this whirlwind of activity, I felt strangely calm. The experience I had lived had given me a new perspective on life and death, on what really matters. As I waited for the test results, I closed my eyes for a moment. Behind my eyelids, I could see a glimpse of that loving light I had experienced. I smiled, knowing that that light was now a part of me, a constant reminder of the path I had chosen to follow. The return to physical life was just the beginning. I knew that the real journey, that of living in accordance with the truths I had discovered, was just beginning. In the days and weeks following my near-death experience, I faced a process of physical recovery and, more profoundly, an inner transformation. The hospital became a place of reflection and relearning, not just about my body, but about my soul. Visits from family and friends took on a new meaning. Every face that appeared at my bedroom door was an opportunity to reconnect, to express the gratitude and love that I had neglected for so long. Tears were shed, hugs exchanged, and promises made, not just by myself, but mutually, as I shared snippets of my experience. My first visitor was Amber Sinclair, my childhood friend who I had pushed away. When she entered the room, hesitant and with teary eyes, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. I reached my hand out to her, and the words flowed naturally. "Amber, forgive me. I understand now how much you mean to me." In that moment, years of estrangement dissolved, and we began to rebuild our friendship on deeper, more authentic foundations. As my physical strength returned, my determination to live by the lessons I learned only grew. I started to reevaluate every aspect of my life, my goals, my relationships, my career. The obsession with achievement and recognition that once drove me now seemed empty and meaningless. In its place grew a burning desire to create meaningful connections, to make a difference in the lives of those around me. I decided to use my platform as an athlete in a completely new way. Instead of just chasing wins and records, I started talking openly about mental health, balance, and the importance of human connections in sport. I started a mentoring program for young athletes, emphasizing not only physical development, but also personal and emotional growth. My relationship with my family has deepened in ways I never imagined possible. I started to prioritize time with them, not just being physically present, but emotionally available. I discovered the joy of simply being, without the constant pressure of doing or achieving something. The near-death experience taught me that life is too precious to be lived on the surface. Every interaction, every moment, carries the potential to be deeply meaningful. I learned to practice gratitude daily, to find beauty in simple things, to truly listen when someone speaks. It wasn't an easy path. There were moments of doubt, of falling back into old patterns. But whenever I felt lost, I closed my eyes and connected with that inner light I brought with me. She reminded me of the unconditional love I experienced and gave me the strength to keep going. Today, years after my near-death experience, I can say that I live a completely transformed life. I'm not perfect. I still make mistakes. I still have moments of weakness. But the difference is that now I live with an expanded consciousness, with an open heart, and with the certainty that each day is a precious opportunity to love, grow, and make a difference. My journey beyond life has taught me that the true purpose of existence lies not in personal achievements, but in the connections we form, the love we share, and the difference we make in the lives of others. And that's how I choose to live each day, with gratitude, with purpose, and with a deep sense of connection to everything and everyone around me. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.